Welcome, fans. React. It's Hal here. Aston Villa 1, Blades 1 is the game we are going to look back on with a number of fans. We're also going to have, I think, what's possibly the most interesting crossover we've ever had with Matthew, who I'm actually going to bring in straight to begin with. Matthew, a Villa fan with Blades connections, darts, YouTubing, commentary. Matthew, tell us about yourself for those not familiar with your work and achievements, please.
Hello. So, Matthew Edgar. I own my own YouTube channel, Edgar TV. I work for Sky Sports as a pundit, work on the Super Series as a commentator, and was playing darts on the professional tour for 11 years. So that's sort of my background in terms of my personal life. But there's a crossover here in terms of the two teams, because my first Sheffield United game was actually in 1998, Sheffield United versus Coventry City in the FA Cup. And yeah, it brings back memories for most people sat in the lathe.
Yeah. Oh, Matthew, why can't I hear you anymore? What's happened there? I can't hear Matthew at the moment. Maybe if you guys can, it's just dropped off for a second. But I was in the Labour stand as well for that night. So obviously Matthew and I will have that in common. Ollie, how are you?
Yes, not bad, thank you. I'm a little bit croaky myself. I'm hoping you can hear me all right. But
yes.
I've shouted myself hoarse last night in a very excited away end at Villa Park. So apologies if I'm croakier than normal.
Well, Matthew, keep jumping in with maybe just every so often just go meep, and then we'll know that we can hear you again, because we've just temporarily lost you, and it was sounding fantastic before that. I'm hoping that Matthew will be able to speak in a way that's audible in a moment. Callum, Blade, how are you?
Yeah, good, thank you, mate. So I think so a little bit somber and a few what ifs going on in my head after last night's result. Obviously, it's one of those, if you offer it beforehand, you take it, but bittersweet.
Yeah, well, while we've got Matthew here, I'd like him to hear what you're going to say. Callum, what did you make of Aston Villa?
I mean, put it this way, I think we stifled them really well. I thought the way we set up, we were quite similar to how we played against Tottenham and Manchester City, in both how we set up and looked to try and exploit our game plan, sit in deep, try and hit them on the break. And I thought we did that quite well. First 20, 25 minutes, I thought we were a little bit sloppy in possession, but we grew into the game. Got the likes of Andre Brooks on the ball, who again I thought was outstanding. I still expected a little bit more from Aston Villa, if I'm honest. Obviously, 15 wins on the bounce is no mean feat. And for the most part, they really didn't test us. Obviously, that's safe from Fodringham in the first half. And again, as a second half grew on, I was quite confident and comfortable with how we were defending and playing. But I think that in itself, though, is another reason why I'm a little bit disappointed only coming away with a point. Saying that, though, we did have our first shot on goal after 78 minutes. So you do have to also chuck that into the equation. But I think for Villa, we're a little bit disappointing, but I think credit also has to go to us for the way we set up and defended.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, Ollie, you were at the game and you would have taken it in a very different way. I mean, after watching that, what are your thoughts? And do you think Villa are serious title contenders?
Look, I don't think they're serious title contenders, I will be honest. I do still expect them to be in and around the European competitions. I actually was quite impressed with them. I thought that some of their play, particularly down that right-hand side with Cash and Bailey, was really nice. They got so much fluidity and were causing problems, really getting in down that side time and time again. Cash, in particular, on the overlap, looked so dangerous. But it was the final ball and it kept letting them down time after time. I think it comes down to United, the way that we'd set up and really pack those central areas, really pack the box. And so they will be really disappointed. It is worth shouting out somebody who I have probably slandered on this very channel. And I'm fairly confident as United fans, about 4 years ago, we all slandered him a bit because he was in direct competition with John Fleck for a place in that Scotland team. But John McGinn is absolutely different gravy. Watching him from my viewpoint yesterday in the stand, you could just see him dominate a game of football in a way that I've not seen from many players so far this season. Everything that Villa were doing, he never gives the ball away. He's making the right decision every time he's picking his passes. And he doesn't actually he beats men without doing anything at all with the ball. When the ball's going near him, he'll just sort of shuffle you out of the way. And suddenly he's taken an entire midfield out of the game by just a little bit of body movement, and he's away from you. So he was really, really impressive. I thought he was outstanding. And I do think he's been one of the standout players that I've seen so far this year. But overall, yeah, I was a little bit, as Callum said, just a little bit disappointed in Villa. I was never as comfortable as Callum, I'll be honest. Anybody who's watched me on here before knows I'm a little bit more pessimistic than maybe some of our more positive United fans. And so I always felt as though there was a goal coming. I felt as though the first probably an hour leading up to the disallowed goal, it just felt like one-way traffic. They were constantly coming at us, and it just felt like a matter of time until the mistake. But once United came out to play, we really caused them problems. Their high line is what I think will probably hold them back. I understand it gets them on the front foot. I understand it's what's really pushed them forward to be in the position they are at this stage, but it's also just left them so open. Once McAtee came on, we could really start to exploit that. We managed to get Archer in. There was a mistake and Harmer ran through, wasn't able to get a shot off, but there were a few times where against better attacks than what United had, they will really get punished on that. And I think United did so well to stifle them and then did create in that last 30 minutes. So, yeah, disappointed to come away with a point sounds insane, given that for 60 minutes we barely had a kick. But the way it went down, ifs, buts and maybes, Hal. It's all ifs, buts and maybes.
Absolutely. Well, I got very excited. So did Matthew when he started reminiscing about that Coventry City game in the Cup, so much so that Matthew's microphone exploded. I think that's something we can all relate to. So, Matthew, I'm going to suggest that we try you one more time. Can we hear Matthew, Edgar? We can't, which I am gutted about because I've got a million questions for you. Matthew, do me a small favour. Jump out, jump back in again. Let's see if we can make it work, because I do have some things I'd really like to say and hear your thoughts on. I will never forget the first time I met Andrew, a.k.a. Roy, a.k.a. Panchero. He turned up unannounced at my house, didn't knock, just walked in, bold as brass, naked as the day he was born, as is his wont. He didn't speak. He walked into the living room. He closed the door. He put his index finger to my mouth and he scrawled a word on his torso in the blood of a recent kill. And it just read, content. And I knew exactly what he meant. And shortly after that, I co-hosted Blades Pod as a stand-in. He'd caught another cold from always being naked, I think. So, Roy, how are you?
Are you completely mad? Like, absolutely ridiculous intro. I'm all right. I'm a bit, like I said, a bit hungover. I had one too many last night in the pub watching the game, but I'm all right. I'm surviving. As you know, I get ill quite often, so I'm used to feeling rubbish.
We know why. I've just explained it. You also at no point denied that story. So
I can neither confirm nor deny.
Now, Andrew, because I'm going to call you that. What did you make of the Blades starting lineup when you saw it? A lineup that has never started a game together before.
I thought this was a fantastic lineup. No, obviously not. I looked at the lineup and I agreed with what he was doing, Wilder. I thought he was obviously resting the likes of Hamer and McAtee, especially Hamer being on a booking. Not really sure whether now what were going on. I would, McBurney again. I'd have started him if I were picking my best side. But I could see what we're doing, and I thought we're going to take the loss here. It's pretty much a definite loss. I actually thought we could probably pre-record this before I was that confident we were going to lose. I was going to say, 3-0, just not good enough. But I wasn't confident when I saw the lineup. I was really worried about the wing backs, to be honest. I know Bogle's stepped up, but we know he's not always been the best defensively. And obviously, LaRouche's not shown as much. So I thought they'd get in behind, which they do really well, Aston Villa, because those two push up and they're not the best off the ball in terms of watching play. But I thought both of them, and in particular, LaRouche, were brilliant. Absolutely fantastic last night.
I have to say, we'll get some more thoughts on the Rucci individual performance. We're going to try Matthew again.
Am I working now?
Yes, brilliant. Okay.
Ditch the technology, we'll go simple.
Yeah, go simple always. That's the way I live my life. So, Matthew, how are you feeling ahead of this one? You must have thought Villa are going to be top.
Absolutely. Yeah, you do. You go into a game like that, you look at the league positions, you look at the table, but there was one key factor that really had me worried going into that game, and that was the Chris Wilder return factor. And I know what Chris Wilder did the last time he was there and the stint and the impact he has certainly on the fans. And I thought this could be a factor that comes into play. And then when I saw the match set up, and I think I texted my brother after about 30 minutes and I said, why don't Sheffield United just give everyone a set of goalie gloves and just play with 11 goalkeepers? And it's the most un-Chris Wilder tactic I've ever seen employed ever, but it looked like it was about to be a masterclass. It looked like they was going to see it off. And a few times, I think, really walked the tightrope of what you can do in a game. I mean, the push on Ollie Watkins just seemed completely irrelevant. He was surrounded, he was going nowhere, and it seemed like they was taking some complete unnecessary risks. And then the punishment came on 78 minutes when Villa just couldn't capitalise on all that possession and all that play. So it was a style of game I didn't expect to see, but in the end, it was kind of like happy to come away with a point when beforehand I would have been certain of a 3-4-0 victory.
I think many people would have felt exactly the same way. Callum, just had Matthew mention that push there. What did you make of the 11-minute penalty claim? Sousa pushing his man in the back from across, a long VAR review before it wasn't given. I know there was another claim straight after, but I thought that one was nonsense. But what about that one?
Yeah, I think you can see by the hesitancy to answer it. For me, it's a penalty, but I also think, obviously, with the way officiating's become and VAR, things like that in the Premier League, it was one of them where if it's not given on field, I was never really too concerned that we're going to get overturned, because I just think that so many people are blinded by what clear and obvious means. I think even the referees are themselves, to be honest with you. But yeah, the more and more I saw it, the more and more I thought it was a penalty, to be honest with you. I think that was probably the only one that I'm quite 100% sure on that probably should have been overturned and been given. But yeah, I think we got away with one there, to be honest.
Yeah, it was be a game of VAR, and some people will say VAR got a lot right. Some people, Matthew, you may think VAR got quite a bit wrong. I mean, when you come away at full time, Matthew, from that, are you thinking we've really been done over by Sheffield United or officiating and VAR?
I'm never one that's going to blame officials or go down that sort of road or blame decisions and things. The game is what it is. And I think Callum said it perfectly there, that if the on-field decision was penalty, I think it would have stayed as a penalty. But I think you're not going to overturn that with a VAR decision. My thing there is just the complete unnecessary risk that was taken in that decision-making process by the defender, because it really didn't need to be there. Watkins didn't look a danger at the time. He was surrounded. He was never getting to the ball. I think if there was a VAR that I would probably look at would be the second half with the disallowed goal, because for me, like Carragher was saying at the time as well, it did feel like a complete new phase of play because the ball was secured. It was in secure possession. The head was up. He was able to make that decision-making and process. So that would be the VAR, I think, that for me was more controversial than any of the other penalty decisions.
We're going to discuss that one, I think, in a bit more detail later on. Matthew, I want your thoughts on where Villa are actually going to finish this season. And then, do you know what? We'll clip this up. And when you get it absolutely spot on, we can replay it on social media at the end of the season.
Oh, I'm not going to get this spot on. How can you predict what Villa is? Where we are at the moment in the league table is absolutely a miracle. When you look back at where was the start of the season, I mean, I've got us down for winning the Europa Conference.
Okay.
I think we win that. I look through it all the time. I don't see who's going to stop us in that competition. And for me, that is the focus of this year. What's going on in the Premier League is an absolute pipe dream. The fact that we was talking about potentially going into today, top of the table, is absolutely unbelievable. But for me as well, when you look at like the quality we've got, we don't have the strength and the depth. We've got quality in front of that front 11, but when you put this across a whole season, there's something lacking. You know, we beat Manchester City, beat Arsenal. You've got to follow that up with beating the teams at the bottom end of the table as well if you're going to be in the title contention. And we don't do that. We can't beat those teams towards the bottom end. We're likely to win or lose any game. There's no consistency, there's no confidence in going into any fixture. And every game that we win is just like, wow, this is amazing. What a journey. And, you know, you probably feel it was the same sort of thing when went from League One to the Championship to the Premiership with Sheffield United. It's like, where does this stop? And we're sort of on that journey now. But it's exciting, but we're players short of even being thrown into a title contender. I kind of don't want to finish in the Champions League positions because I don't think we're capable of dealing with the demands of what a Champions League campaign would be. So another European qualification would be good, but ideally not top 4. I don't think we can meet the demands right now.
Europa Conference is going to be won by my Italian team, Fiorentina, who many people who know me personally will know I've been to watch many times. So that's your answer to that question. Who else can challenge you? They can. And I want to just touch on what you were talking about a little earlier because we lost you. So you're a Villa fan. And did you say it was a family of Sheffield United season ticket holders?
Yeah, so how it originated, my dad used to be a Sheffield United fan back in the day, and me and my brother was always like, right, we want to go to a football game. At that point, I think I've already made my alliance to Aston Villa, because when you're younger, what you tend to do is you tend to become a fan of something because of a player. And I had a little Dwight York football Corinthian figure, you know, the ones with the big heads and things.
Yeah.
I had the Dwight York. So for me, that was it. Aston Villa is going to be my team, so I've got this Dwight York football figure. And that's sort of how it all began. And then my dad took us to the 1998 game against Coventry City in the FA Cup. We sat at the back in the laver. At that point, my brother was converted because, like everyone at that age, he was a Man United fan. And he sort of got converted to Sheffield United. Then my mum got on board as well. So they all had season tickets. And I sort of went along as much as I could, but I didn't go to every single game like they did. But yeah, so I've got 3 in the household growing up that was Sheffield United, and I was Aston Villa. So luckily we avoided each other for a long, long time. But we did have a clash in the FA Cup. I believe Sheffield United in the Championship at the time. And I was over in the away end, first and only time I've been in that end, and they was over in the home, and I think it was a 1-0 win to Sheffield United in that one. So that was the first time they clashed, and then since then, Sheffield United's always seemed to get the upper hand, other than the Sheffield United aren't allowed to score at Aston Villa rule, which I was trying to see if they'd employ that on Cameron Archer somehow. Like,
too soon.
It didn't cross the line. I don't think it fully crossed the line. I thought it was
still too soon for me to be laughing about the ghost goal. Thank you, Matthew. So from what I take from your story, you should be a Sheffield United fan. Honestly, I don't know how anyone goes to that Coventry game and doesn't come out converted in red and white, but fair play to you, sticking to your guns. I admire that. I was trying to think, the first Corinthians figure I had was Nick Barmby. So I think that was when he was playing for Tottenham. So that could have been a very different story for me as well. But Matthew, if people want to follow you, your work and your conversations that you regularly have on darts, where can they head, please?
So most of the time I'm on now X at the Edgar 501, available on there, or Twitter if that's what you prefer to know it as. But mostly as well YouTube. So I've got my own YouTube channel, Edgar TV, on there, so you can check me out on there. And I'm pretty much on there every day at the moment as the World Championships is on. Big time for our darting calendar. So I'm sure everyone's getting into the darts this time of year, aren't they? Everyone's a darts fan at Christmas. It's part of the festivities now, isn't it?
Absolutely. Matthew, I'm really glad we were able to hear the words coming out of your mouth because they were good words. Thank you so much for joining us.
No problems. Cheers,
what
guys.
A great guy. Cheers, Matthew. I'm sure we'll be back on for the future, of course, the reverse, and next season as we stay up the Great Escape. So we're just going to talk mostly Blades now. Ollie, talk us through the first half as you saw it from your vantage point at Villa Park.
I mean, it was very much a first half of, oh God, please don't concede. Oh God, please don't concede. And I think that was the entire tactic as we saw it. You know, we covered before, when you saw the starting 11, we saw it just as we were getting into the ground. There'd been some rumours and conversations about it, maybe a few hours before kickoff. But when it was confirmed, we were just getting into the ground, and it very much felt like a, so turn around. Do we think it's time? We've got time to get home. Maybe we can watch it on Sky. We'll get back in time, because it certainly felt as though we'd written this game off. We were saving the players to make sure they were all fit. They were all ready for Tuesday. And so the first half played out a little bit that way, to be honest. I thought that on corners, we just really felt at risk. I think there were 2 good chances that they'd got, a header at the back post, and then Watkins put one over the bar. And it did feel as though we were walking a tightrope. They weren't cutting through as at ease, but Wes had to make a good save. Like I say, the corners had been there. We discussed Vinny Souza. Don't know what he was thinking about with that push on that push on Watkins in the first half. And so it was backs to the wall stuff. But it also, getting through that at 0-0, getting to half time at 0-0, you could feel it within the fans that there was a bit more, ooh, this is one of those games that you see all the time where actually a team rides that wave. They're not going to come at you again and again. They will get frustrated. They will start to make mistakes. They'll start to just not have that fluidity in their play as they get more frustrated. You could hear it in their fans as well. And it gave you a little bit of confidence getting out of it at 0-0. But yeah, it was backs to the wall stuff. And we did ride our luck a little.
Into the second half. And Andrew, I want to talk about one of the major talking points that Matthew touched on. Bulldog running into trouble, and Villa thought they'd scored from Bailey, but disallowed. What did you make of that decision?
I'm going to be honest, I don't like those sort of goals being disallowed, I have to admit. It is a foul. It is technically a foul. He's got hold of him. I don't think West covers himself in glory anyway. He's sort of all over the place. He should be out better than he was. The thing is, that obviously, I think it probably is a different phase of play. That said, caveat, I don't know the rules anymore. So that's all right because I'm a fan, but it seems like the referees don't know the rules, because I imagine we'll see that goal maybe tonight at Liverpool-Arsenal and it'll be given. I've no idea what the rules are. I don't like those sort of goals being scrubbed out. I was delighted, obviously, as a Sheffield United fan, but I'm going to be honest and think that if that was against us, obviously a lot of our fans are calling Villa fans bitter and stuff because they're furious. We'd be exactly the same if that goal had been ruled out and the penalty shouts that Ollie talked about earlier as well.
Well, I want to just bring in what's been discussed on social media. There's lots on this. Darren Smith on Twitter saying, should the Villa goal have been disallowed? Yes. Ref should have blown up for the foul on Wes, but once he missed that, should VAR have disallowed that goal? No. The goal came from George's pass being intercepted, not Wes being held.
Yeah.
So right decision, wrong reason. Andrew, thoughts on that?
Yeah, completely agree. I think it is a foul, but if he's missed the foul, it's gone too far for me for it to be brought back. And I can completely see why they were so aggrieved about it.
It's interesting you say that because we've got this one's quite interesting. I think it's the rules do not allow for different phase of play exemptions. So it shouldn't really be that the referee looks at that and then thinks, is this one that I go back on because I missed that, if you know what I mean? Do I then reset it? It all depends whether you think there was enough time in between when Villa got the ball back. Is it a new phase? I think at the time there was people saying, well, the player involved who was pulling him then is involved in the goal. So that's why it's all so confusing, Andrew. And as you say, we don't know. What hope do the refs have?
It's interesting that phase of play rule came in because of the Lundstrom thing, didn't it?
Absolutely. That goal shouldn't have been disallowed because actually Tottenham got the ball back and cleared it, and then it swung in from a different side. Don't get me started on that one again.
Yeah. But yeah, I would have been really, really disappointed as a Sheffield United fan. And I'd have been the same as the Villa fans saying they don't want us in top four and all this sort of stuff. But because I don't like seeing goals like that being disallowed.
Yeah, I know what you mean. And Callum, of course, we were delighted at the time when it was disallowed, of course. But did Bulldog then get away with one, a penalty for a handball shout on 73? Or Callum, do you think that was, up here, which isn't handball?
Shirt line is what they call it nowadays. Yeah, I think it's one of those where, as a fan, if it's for you, you want it. If it's against you, you're saying it's never been. For me, I don't think it was a penalty, no. Just to briefly mention Bollock, though, as much as we're saying about the phase of play and things like that, he's got away with murder there, trying to play out from that situation and getting caught. I get playing out and things like that, but that is totally the wrong time to do it. And yeah, he's been saved his bacon there by whoever the VAR official was last night.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I don't think George had a great game. Normally he does, and that's when it's so obvious when George hasn't had a good game, because he's normally a sort of 8 or 9 out of 10. Ollie, Jack Robinson was caught by a swinging elbow from Duran. No red card. What did you make of that? It did draw blood from Jack Robinson.
Yeah, it was a weird one because we just didn't see it at all in the ground. And to be honest, we didn't know what the VAR check was for. So we were sat there and it came up, VAR check, possible red card. And genuinely, we all thought that Vinny Souza or Robinson were going to be sent off. Because we were sat there like, oh God, what? Vinny'd come running over to get involved. And we thought, oh, what is going on? Like, please don't have done something stupid and get sent off here. We're so close. Maybe we're going to be able to see this out. Please don't let this be the stupid thing that gets us. And it's only actually on the way home that you then see it and you think, wait a minute, what? I've got a text on my phone saying, how is that not a red card? Again, with no context, no understanding of what had happened. But to see it, I don't understand. We've talked about it already, not understanding the rules. I don't understand phaser play. You spoke for about 2 minutes, Hal, and I got about 20% of it because I was so confused by what you were trying to talk about. But then similarly, at what point does elbowing somebody in the face not be a red card? I certainly, having seen it back, felt a little bit that they would think they got away with one seeing that. But, their fans, all went against them. They didn't have a single thing all night long that went in their favour. So it must be that we're wrong and it weren't a red card at all.
Yeah, well, you say you were confused. That's because I actually wrote the notes I needed to read and then lost them and then was trying to remember what I'd written. And so that's why that might have sounded like a load of nonsense.
I'll be honest with you, Hal. I thought you were talking perfect sense and it was the rule that was nonsense. You could have blagged that one straight through, blame it all on PGMOL. That'd have been fine. But now you've admitted it and I'm
always honest. You know that. So I've put something on Twitter a little earlier that I didn't think was particularly controversial, but several people have unfollowed me and insulted me since. So you just never know. And that was along the lines of the fact that Jack Robinson didn't go down, clutching his head, rolling around on the floor, screaming and crying. And maybe I said that because my eldest nephew has just been signed by a professional club, and one of the things that his dad and I have been talking to him about is how we want him to behave on the field. And I have kind of, from my side, instilled in him that I want him to behave properly on the field, because I don't like watching a game of football that is marred by play acting. Now, in some cases, play acting, of course, in this occasion, Jack would not have been play acting. He would have been genuinely hurt. But I feel like he's obviously been elbowed. He's drawn blood. Let the referee then make the decision. I don't think him rolling in the grass necessarily needs to be added to that equation. There's enough there. Ref didn't get the right decision at the time, and VAR didn't help him out either. And also Chris Wilder's come out with a very interesting comment that referees go all the way from the non-league through the leagues, making all the decisions. Then they get to the top level and the decisions, the big ones, are taken out of their hands. Now, Andrew, what do you think about Chris's comments on that? Because it's really a different game from when they started. Referees.
Yeah, I thought they were really good comments. And I thought that myself for a while, that because you've got this almost like this fallback, they don't seem as switched on. Look, if the referee, as Ollie said, he were there. If the referee's missed that, I think we can all accept that he's missed that. It's one of those things that when you've got a team looking at that, that is a clear sending off.
Yes.
But for me, it always feels like they're trying to cover each other's backs. Obviously, maybe not in this game because they disallowed a goal, which they could have given. But it's almost like he's not giving it, on the field. It is a sending off, but it makes it look bad if we send him off now and he's missed it, because it is a clear sending off. I'm not breaking any ground by saying I don't want VAR or anything like that. I don't think anyone does anymore. But it's decisions like that we'd have all accepted. The referees missed that. That's fine. We would have been upset about it, but realistically, you could see why. It's the aftermath of like the people checking it for 5 minutes and then saying, "Oh no, actually, it's fine. Yeah, it's fine. Actually, yeah." But it clearly isn't. We've all got eyes.
It's very, very strange. Callum, what do you make of Jack Robinson sort of reacting in the way that he, didn't?
For me, it's like you said about how you want to portray yourself on the pitch. I wouldn't like him going down, and obviously if he's hurt and things like that, then go down and do what you have to do. But clearly, he doesn't feel the need to. But even still, if it is getting to a point where you are starting to have to be more theatrical to get decisions to go your way, I mean, I know Wilder said it in the past, and so have many other people, where we are basically encouraging play acting and playing up to the cameras, playing up to referees, things like that, to get decisions, because that's the only way you're getting them. And it's just not how fans want to see the game played. Absolutely, and I think that's a frustrating thing for me. So,
and actually, if VAR go and then do their job properly, you're then not encouraging play acting. So VAR have done this wrong, because you don't need to be rolling around on the floor going, it's obvious he's hurt. VAR have seen it. It's an elbow. Send him off. And hopefully the message then gets sent through that we will cover you. We will get the decisions right. You don't need to do all that feigning and rolling about.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, put it this way: the thing that Howard Webb does with Michael Owen at the end of every month or whatever it is, you could have a full episode from last night's game. It was so many just contentious decisions for both sides. But yeah, it is just a frustrating one. Like Roy said, in the ground, you can accept the miss it. I mean, the thing with VAR for me, which kind of alludes to Wilder's comments as well, is that the players aren't robots. They don't get the opportunity to make second, third, fourth goes at whatever they're trying to do. They're human. They make mistakes. Why can't we just let the referees do that? And as much as referees' mistakes can impact the result, so can a forward missing a one-on-one at the end of a game or a defender scoring an own goal. Let the game be played by humans and officiated by humans rather than putting it over so many different videos and still coming up with the wrong outcome, because that just frustrates everybody like it has been doing.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. We should go for a drink sometime. Right, let's let's
How are you,
talk about.
I'd say no.
That's why I didn't answer.
Archer, it had to be Roy, didn't it? Roy, can I call it? I'm just Andrew. It had to be Archer, didn't it? 200th Premier League goal for Sheffield United, and who else was going to get it against Aston Villa? I mean, what about that moment? Wow,
unbelievable. We were in the pub. Someone who would nearly knocked the Christmas tree on the floor. But we're in the pub. Everyone were going mad because I thought actually up until we had about a 5-10 minute spell just before that, where it's the sort of the first. I think also we had a first shot on 75 minutes or whatever it was.
But do you think that is the McAtee impact?
Yeah, I think he made a massive and Hamer when he came on as well. We just sort of getting into their half, and Lowe in fact as well got forward really well when he came on. And we started creating a few sort of half chances of getting into the area. A few, Norwood had his shot straight at the keeper, then he had another one which was pretty poor that went wide, and we were getting into good areas. So, although it was a shock that we scored, I wouldn't say it'd been coming, but it didn't come completely out of the blue because it felt like Villa had run out of ideas, which I think they had because they were really slow by this point. They were trying to probe the way through and they weren't finding any gaps. And it was a fantastic moment. It did come against the run of play, but maybe not against the run of play for those previous 10 minutes. We'd actually started getting into the game, and it's a fantastic bit of play from McAtee with the ball, Hamer to cut it back, cross comes in, perfect finish.
Yeah, and lesser players cross that ball straight away. Hamer just to check back and then pick the pass. Callum, though, we then saw 9 minutes added on. What were you thinking? Were you thinking, well, it's inevitable. This is Tottenham all over again. It's just these sides get as long as they need to score. Or were you thinking we could hold on?
Well, at first, I was still gutted because I had a couple of quid on Archer to score, United to win 1-0, and I cashed it out about 10 seconds before it happened for an extra £1.50. Just I thought, I can chuck it on something else, and I was a little bit disappointed at the same time as obviously being delighted that we 1-0 up away at Aston Villa. So I
wasn't expecting that answer. Be gamble aware.
Yeah. There's 2 lessons there: either don't cash out or just don't bet. But yeah, looking at it though, I know people are saying about how much at the time there were. Obviously, the first VAR call of the second half, that the foul on Fodringham for the Villa goal that got disallowed, that took 3 or 4 minutes. United made 4 subs, so that's another 2-3 minutes there. They made a couple of subs, that's another minute or so. And then obviously the VAR call for Jean Duran and Susan, that Robinson incident. So I don't think it's far-fetched with the 9 minutes, to be honest with you. It's just because of the amount of VAR decisions and substitutes, things like that. It's as much as looking at it, you do dread seeing 9 minutes go up. I can also see where it's come from as well, to be honest. Maybe 7 or 8. But
I mean, let's just be honest here.
Complaints.
When we all started watching football, 3 minutes, 4 minutes, sometimes go 5 and the whole crowd would be like, now we're just going to accept 12 minutes, 9 minutes. It's a different game. You're getting into the 100th minute of a 90-minute football match. I'm not saying that it's wrong, but it hasn't always been this way. So it's getting harder to accept just this a large new rule that has been introduced seemingly at the worst time for Sheffield United. just got to be so much fitter for so much longer against players who are so much better.
Yeah, and it's one of those as well. Obviously, if it were the usual 3 or 4 minute added time, I think we'd have been 5 points better off from that Tottenham and Villa game.
Yeah.
So it's massively frustrating. But like I say, when those incidents do occur, and that's just another failure of VAR as well, to be honest, how much time it takes, which then adds on for the end of the game, which gives better teams with more money and more infrastructure, more depth to come and hurt you in those latter stages.
Ollie, we should mention when Ollie Norwood kicked the ball straight out from the centre spot. Ollie, what was that all about? Yeah, you summed it up. Okay, good. I just thought we couldn't not mention that. Callum, what did you make of the overall referee's performance from Anthony Taylor?
To be honest with you, I thought he was all right. Obviously, I think he let the game go for the most part through soft fouls. I don't think he gave a lot of those. I think the majority of the big calls he got right, bar obviously the Fodringham foul, because I would say he should have given that. And I do think it were a penalty for the foul on Watkins. We've said already that we can kind of forgive the miss elbow on Robinson, but for the most part, I thought he was fairly consistent for both sides. Got most of the major calls right, and to say we've been kind of critical of refereeing performances across England recently, I don't think it was as bad a one as we've seen in many a time anyway recently.
I think that's fair. Ollie, we've mentioned the Russi, but I thought I'd just throw this one out. Which players stood out for you?
Ooh, players that stood out. I think, obviously, I'm going to split the game into two halves almost. The first 60 minutes and the last 30 minutes, because it did feel as though two very different performances from United as that 90 minutes progressed. So I thought the first 60 minutes, the players who really stood out, I thought were Jack Robinson, Larousse, and Andre Brooks. Andre Brooks just continues to impress me every time I see him. I think his confidence on the ball, the fact that he's willing to take it, to try and take on a man, he's got good skills, he's got nice footwork, he's got a bit of pace about him. So he really does stand out. And I thought, particularly first half, he was excellent again.
Ollie, on Brooks, because I know you're going to move on, had a good first half, as you mentioned. Where do you see his best position being long term?
I
know, right?
See, now you're asking questions, aren't you?
Oof.
Know what I mean?
Oof.
I'll just do that again and then you'll move on.
Yeah, I will.
No, I think you'll probably see him move a little bit further forwards. I think we'll see him probably playing around the 10 role. I think you've seen that confidence and ability that he's got on the ball to be able to dribble past players, as long with his pace, really means he can impact games in that sort of position. I think at the moment he's probably not quite developed enough to trust his decision making or to trust his finishing of pushing him forwards like that, which is why we're seeing him a little bit deeper and we're trying to use his physicality to try and help us defensively. But I think as he develops, he will move further forwards and really become an impactful player going forwards, creating chances and scoring goals.
Interesting. Of course, it might depend on the formation long term that we end up adopting. And Ollie, you were going to carry on with your players that stood out for you. I promise no further interruptions. You're Ollie. On honour. Carry on.
Yeah, and I just thought that sort of second 30 minutes that we were talking about there, it's after we'd made the changes and when United had come to play a little bit more. So defensively, we got those players standing out, really helping us handle the pressure that they were bringing, as well as obviously giving us a little bit of something ourselves to try and relieve pressure. But then we made the changes. Harmer, McAtee, for me, for that last 30 minutes was outstanding. He was beating players. He was creating chances. He was playing lovely passes. Obviously has a big role to play in quick thinking to set up the goal. And I thought, actually, I think it was about the 100th minute as he's charging in on goal when their lad just rugby tackles him down to stop him getting through on the break. He had a massive impact. And I think all of the positive performances, all of the positive results that United have got so far this season, McAtee has played such an important part in them that he's actually proven himself to be a really key part of this team.
Quite agree. Callum, right after this, I have to record my Luton match preview because That's how frustrating it is at the moment. Andrew knows all about these trials and tribulations. So how big is the Luton match, Callum, in your opinion?
Well, it's massive. Obviously, I think Jack Robinson came out and said it last night. We've lost against Burnley and Bournemouth at home, teams who are, well, Bournemouth obviously staying out of it now pretty much with their pick-up in form, but at the time, losing to teams in and around us is, when you're trying to stay up in this league, it's criminal. You can't do that. Now we get another opportunity. Boxing Day as well, the lane fully sold out. It will be a massive occasion. But what I also will say is, after working so hard and getting such a good point against Aston Villa, if we don't beat Luton, it's just gonna feel such a waste. Really, it's a massive game, a 6-pointer if we want to chuck cliches in there.
And we do.
So I just hope that we come into it and play how we did against Brentford at home, where we were really defensively solid, I thought, for the most part, grew into the game. And I think as we are growing under Chris Wilder, we are getting better in possession, which I think is a massive thing in these kind of games, especially against teams at the bottom half, where we will have a bit more of the ball and hopefully we can expose them. And I think a win there as well. I said with the last 4 games of December, Chelsea, Villa, Luton and City, if you'd have offered me 4 points out of those, I'd have taken it. I'd have probably saw the point coming against Chelsea rather than Villa, but get a win against Luton, and I think it's a real decent platform to go into January, get some reinforcements and grow from there.
Couldn't agree more. So, Andrew, if you could get me a view from in the next 10 minutes for Luton, that would be fantastic.
They're not even started the game today.
It's my life. I'm going to have to record 3 different versions and Nick will just piece together. Of course, Luton had that win. Luton had that draw. Luton had that loss. No, I will, of course, wait till at least the end of that game. I want to thank Ollie. I want to thank Roy, Callum, and I thought Matthew was excellent as well. And all of you for watching, really appreciate it. We got a point at Villa Park. We'd have taken it before. Why does it feel so bad? Also, from me, in case this is the last live that I get to speak to you, have a wonderful and a very Merry Christmas. Right, nothing from the rest of you on there? Great. Okay.
I thought you were